Discretion is advised.
Okay, my passengers are here. I gotta go.
Hey, and welcome. I'm Dave, and you are listening to Life Is Peachy, a music-driven, nostalgia-fueled, immersive audio documentary podcast.
Excellent.
Each episode always featuring a special guest from the album of discussion. Life Is Peachy allows me to sit here with you and waffle on about the bands and the albums that became the soundtrack to my life.
Say something for the record. Tell the people what you feel.
Growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s to now, shooting music videos and music documentaries for some of my favorite artists through Life Is Peachy Productions.
Action.
You know, I can eat a peach for hours.
Lips, let's jump into that time machine together. It's time to step into the side zone. Now, here at Life Is Peachy, I pride myself on delivering to you, the Lips, my amazing community of Life Is Peachy supporters, unique and fresh perspectives, narratives, and celebrations. From the albums through to the artists and the nostalgic reflections inside all of that. I strive to celebrate and deep dive underdog albums, unsung members, or overlooked eras, overlooked milestones in bands' careers, or even just moments in time or a band's back catalogue that, for whatever reason, may have never really been that discussed or looked into.
I've been following the case for years.
These albums actually often tell that story. They lay everything out, coded within the lyrics, the music, the time and place of release. And quite often, it's these albums that are created and released during duress, stressful times when the general equilibrium within the band is off caliber. Looking back over and exploring these albums is often fascinating because little did we know, a lot of the issues, a lot of the questions and answers are all there within the songs. And so this is why the music plays such a massive role within all of my episodes. It's definitely there for a reason, it's part of the interview, and it's presenting questions, giving answers, providing nuance, subtext, layers, and details.
What does that mean? Know me. Know me. Nobody knows anyone else, ever. You will never, ever know me.
And so when I cut away to the song, it's all done consciously and for purpose. Definitely not to take away from what has been said, but to complement, enhance, or make more sense of. The music, in a way, is also being interviewed along with the guest. And if you go back over my episodes, you'll see what I'm talking about and the pattern to my madness, also when it comes to why I explore the albums that I do. If I ever think to myself, I wonder why this, or I've never heard a reason for this. It's just really reached a stage where I figure I'll do it myself because it's the only way to get the information and the answers that plague my mind.
You're out of your mind. Ain't it cool?
And so I then construct an episode, an idea, and then manifest making it happen because of my own sheer curiosity that has always existed with these bands, these albums, and this music ever since I was young.
Start the music.
From From the first moment, incidentally walking in on a friend's older brother blasting Shock back in 1998, it's safe to say Fear Factory quickly secured themselves on my belt of favourite bands. A belt I wore with pride, harbouring confidence and joy, equipped with possibilities as I ventured my way through high school and adolescence. Moments in time I would spend the rest of my life looking back on.
There's never enough time.
Some of the best experiences I can account for, shared by myself and with others. And with a lot of these bands that I fell hard for, essentially the bands or albums that come before you on this podcast, a connection was formed. Music gave me a voice and, in layman's terms, a reason to exist, and because of this, I was committed and often adaptable, following bands either through their progression of style or lineup changes.
Their early work was a little too new wave for my taste. But when Sports came out in '83, I think they really came into their own, commercially and artistically.
But sometimes, and for reasons I would say bigger than me and what high school Dave's little brain was capable to comprehend and process, changing members could prove to be a deal breaker. Almost a sense of betrayal.
Wow.
Yup, I know it can sound a little bit ridiculous, but case in point, the fierce division that still leaves many Sepultura fans begrudged since 1996.
Final round. Fight!
And then on a personal level, for me, when it came to Head PE's post-2003 blackout era, I just couldn't keep my heart in the game with half the core lineup leaving and the vibe changing so dramatically. But then there are other bands you follow through thick and thin and stick it out in the trenches by their side, and arguably Fear Factory could be one of those bands for many.
Don't leave me, Soundwave. As you command, Megatron.
Not only did they call it a day back in 2002 after the release of their fourth album, Digimortal, but when they reunited a mere 1 year later without guitarist, founding member and primary songwriter Dino Cazares, a lot of fans were left confused. What laid ahead for our beloved Fear Factory in an era without their Axeman, synonymous to their sound and legacy? It was a strange place to be, but 2004's Archetype, the first of two Post-Dino releases, proved the band could carry on holding the Fear Factory torch without their guitarist, and a lot of fans considered this to be one of their favourites within the back catalogue. But what did Dino think about this album and 2005's Transgression? And what did his life look like during this period of time outside of the band he started all the way back in 1988? Well, in true Lip fashion, I'm all about hearing other perspectives, and in this case, let's take it to the extreme. Today I welcome Dino to the Life Is Peachy Podcast to look back on the 20th anniversary of Archetype. Album released while he was no longer in Fear Factory and had no part in writing, recording, or touring. but nonetheless released from a band he started, a band that created a sound I would class as beyond significant to the world of heavy music, a guitar tone and style that has influenced generations, a band he was a member of until the release of this very album. So without further ado, Dino, thank you for your time and energy, and welcome.
Appreciate it. How you doing?
Yes, I'm good, thanks Dino, and I would have to say I'm actually still kind of buzzing from your recent Australian tour and that first in-person taste of Fear Factory live with Milo Silvestro. Wow. Yeah, the future and this new chapter of Fear Factory is looking very exciting for sure.
Very much so. I always love going to Australia.
I really love the segment in the Fear Factory DVD, Digital Connectivity, showing the Australian, let's call it, pandemonium. I feel the Aussie love for you guys is on a whole other level.
Fuck yeah. We started going there back in 1993, and we never stopped. And it's always been one of those countries that really adapted to Fear Factory right away.
Yeah, I would argue that a lot of Australian fans are very open to giving new lineups, new eras, new chapters and phases of bands a fair go. We're very open, and I think we saw this with both the Archetype era of Fear Factory and, of course, once again, right now with Milo.
Well, I think also because they recognized we were one of the first early heavy extreme bands to be going over to Australia way back in the early 90s. The other bands that I heard that went there right around the same time we did was Morbid Angel and Carcass, were one of the first two.
Right.
But we seemed to resonate with fans a little bit differently, especially when the Demanufacture record came out. We had a tour booked, and Burton lost his voice on that tour, so we could only do one show, which was in Brisbane, and the next day was supposed to be Sydney, and there was a riot because Burton lost his voice and he couldn't sing, so we couldn't actually play the show.
Yeah, this is the part from the DVD that was coming to mind.
But no one really notified the fans that were waiting outside in line to get into the show. Somebody just came up and put a sign, said show canceled. That was it. No explanation, no nothing. There turned out to be a riot down there. It was at the university, and people were throwing rocks and breaking all the windows, and it became national news because, kids got arrested.
Groups of youths went on the rampage, smashing windows after a concert was cancelled at short notice. Dozens of police were rushed to the area when about 300 teenagers began venting their anger after promoters told them that Fear Factory would not play.
We were actually still in Brisbane when it happened. I had to stay behind. The rest of the guys ended up flying home, and I ended up doing interviews for every national newspaper. I was on the national news regarding that situation. Of course, it was the promoter's fault. It was AJ Mata. Yes, it was his fault. Failure to notify the kids, the fans that were outside waiting, just didn't tell them anything. It became a thing in Australia. People were like, what? Whoa, Fear Factory, who's this? So it really exposed us to a lot of people. So we ended up redoing the tour a few months later, and the whole tour was sold out all across Australia.
Nice.
It was amazing. And then by 1996, Sepultura had broken up, and they were meant to do the Big Day Out Festival. So they were looking for a band to replace them, and somehow we ended up getting the gig, and kids were fucking extremely excited. Big, huge banners, says Fear Factory, blah, 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 we love you. And it was just amazingly warm welcome once again, less than a year later. And it was like, wow. It was like we owned the place. You know what I mean?
Epic.
Prodigy was on the tour, Soundgarden, a lot of good bands, Offspring. And we came on right at the perfect time, like 4 o'clock every day. Perfect timing, just before all the bigger bands came on, It was just a warm welcome, and we were extremely excited, and it was just a really great time. We also got a gold record there for Demanufacture, and it was like, wow, we love Australia. Yeah.
The backstage, larger-than-life grandstand. We're here with Fear Factory, Dino Cazares. You guys are taking the place of Sepultura, and the kids, you know, they seem to be pretty stoked with the Fear Factory. Have you had a chance to meet many fans since you've been here?
Oh, every time after we play, we always go out and talk to the fans, and there's a lot of them out there, more than I realize, actually. We're just really happy to be here.
And to be part of that golden age, Big Day Out history books, I think is pretty awesome. Sad that that one's just not around anymore. It's definitely one of the top tier festivals for alternative music back then.
Fuck yeah.
And like that, he's gone.
We did Soundwave 2015, 2016 when it all went to shit.
And you did Soundwave with Divine Heresy too.
Yes, in 2007 was Divine Heresy. 2008, sorry.
Yep, I was in the pit for that one.
Great. It was amazing. That was really good too. A lot of people really liked Divine Heresy out there. It was pretty much my answer to, you know, because I was out of Fear Factory. Late 2002, 2003, I was out of Fear Factory. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? We did a tour in Australia, I want to say 2002. And for some reason, when we got back, we were meant to go write another new record. And I remember the first day I went into the studio, Raymond, the drummer, walked in. We hadn't seen each other for a month or so. And so first time seeing each other. So I was like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, small talk. I had my guitar ready to go in the rehearsal room. Raymond was sitting on his drum kit, tinkering with some stuff. And then Christian walks in and just sits on the couch. And then Burton walked in and said, I quit. And he goes, I don't want to play with you, and I don't want to play in Fear Factory. Bye. I was like, okay. No explanation. That's it. Just left. Raymond goes, well, I guess the band's over. And then Christian just walked out. So it seemed like it was something that was already talked about, obviously behind my back.
The deepest circle of hell is reserved for betrayers and mutineers.
We always made a pact amongst ourselves. If one of us, meaning me, Raymond, and Bert, if one of us would leave the band, that would be it. Because we were the three core members. Christian came in much later.
And who did this to you?
What?
Who did this to you?
You did.
I was at a bar, and my booking agent, who lived in Los Angeles, and he's like, hey, man, I'm sorry to hear about what happened. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, oh, I shouldn't say anything. And I was like, this was like the night before. Damn, my agent knew about that? You know what I mean? Before I did? It was definitely a big shock to me. This is something that I had in my mind to start this band way back in 1988 was when I really started to think about doing something like that. It was actually Metallica's fault. Metallica released a record called Injustice for All. They had a song called One, which is a very famous song. Everybody knows that song. But there's one particular part in the song that has the guitars and the kick drums syncopated. Landmine, it's taking my arms, that part. I was like, why didn't they do more of that? That sounds so cool. I want to start a band like that. You know what I mean? I want to start a band that just syncopates the kick drums and the guitars together. I started getting into more industrial music. I was starting to get into the mechanical feel of some of those industrial bands and just the looping of samples, looping of guitars and just drums, and let's just get into that whole thing. So going back when we started, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to sound like. It took me a few songs to achieve that, but that was my idea when we put Fear Factory together, that was what I wanted to sound like. then all of a sudden it's just taken away from you. You're like, what the fuck? This is all I knew. This was my life. This is what I was dedicated to. It's kind of like you being married for all these years and starting a family with somebody, and then your wife starts an affair with somebody else. That's how bad it was, you know what I mean?
Sweetheart, be reasonable. After all, we're married.
Consider that a divorce.
Around 2003, I had another band called Brujeria, and we actually started touring all through South America and stuff like that. I remember at that time, Raymond had come over and said, hey, look, we're starting the band. Oh, wow. He goes, but without you. I'm like, what? Like, what the fuck? And so obviously a lot of legalities happened. We had to work out all the legal issues, and I was still a part of the trademark ownership of the name. I owned 25% of the band. So even though the band was out there touring and out there doing stuff, I was still getting paid my share of the money, 25%. So I was like, okay, this is kind of a good thing because now I'm free to work on all my projects. That was how I had to look at it. That was the only positive way that I could see it. By 2004, they released a record called Archetype. And I was still touring with Brujeria and touring all through South America and blah, blah, blah. And I was doing that stuff. But when they came out with Archetype, I'm like, all right, man, I need to fucking start a band. I need to start a band that sings in English. The band called Brujeria sings all in Spanish. I had a band called Asesino. We released our first record in 2002 as well. I was touring with that band.
2000's Brujeria's final album with Dino Cazares, turns 25 in 2025. Released on the tail end of Roadrunner Records' glory years, this album is on another level, with a supergroup lineup, and deserves a deep dive. Stay tuned.
So I was doing all these projects. Then I got a call all of a sudden from Monty Connor at Roadrunner Records, and he says, hey, look, I got this idea doing an all-star band, but I want to do it with different members from Roadrunner Records. As a matter of fact, we're going to call it the Roadrunner All-Stars. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a fun thing, right? So he gave me a list of band members that I could choose from. We went in, wrote some songs, and I was the team captain. And then Rob Flynn became a team captain. Joey Jordison became a team captain. Matt from Trivium became a team captain. And they all came up with their own guys that they wanted to write songs with and all that stuff. So it was a collection of songs of different artists that were on Roadrunner Records. We did like a month and a half of rehearsals. It was a big thing. It was fun. It was really fun. We also did a live show in 2005.
Yeah, such a special project and absolute epic way to celebrate, to encapsulate Roadrunner Records and all that it has given lovers of heavy music over the years. Because I don't know where I'd be growing up without Roadrunner, and obviously I'm not alone in that sentiment because the compilation even peaked at 45 on the Australian album charts. And your core session band featured some Lip Illumini, Roy Mayorga, Andreas Kisser, and the beloved Paul Gray.
So working on all these projects and songs prevented me from putting out something with Divine Heresy right away. I was like, I need to answer to Archetype. I need to come out with my band that's going to be as good or just as good or if not better than that. I need to show Fear Factory fans or just metal fans in general, like, look, I haven't gone away. I'm doing all this other stuff in Spanish, but I'm mainly keeping it in South America. So it alienated all my fans here because a lot of them didn't really know about those Mexican bands. It was underground to all the English-speaking fans. So I need to answer to Archetype.
And so here we are, 20 years of Archetype.
Yeah. It's so funny that we're talking about the 20th anniversary of Archetype on a record that I wasn't on.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I thought this would be something interesting for the fans, and I'm coming from that perspective of someone who really likes this album and someone wanting to know more about that part of the story. For a lot of us Fear Factory fans, Archetype sits quite high in the band's back catalogue.
Correct. You kind of have to explain what was going on at that time
for
to
the
really
context.
Understand. Yeah, exactly.
With Archetype turning 20 in 2024, and a lot of fans holding it close to their heart, what is your honest opinion towards Archetype as a Fear Factory album and how it sits amongst the band's back catalogue?
Well, I think it sits great in the band's back catalog. It was a good replication of what we had done prior to that record being released. So the fans loved it. You know, I think they nailed the sound and they did a great interpretation of the legacy of what Fear Factory sounded on the previous 4 records. So I think it sits well. I listened to the record and the first 4 or 5 songs I liked, but then they kind of lost me after that. The record kind of took a different turn. And I was like, okay, I really need to answer to this record. So they were touring, they were doing all that stuff. And then around 2005 or 6, they released a record called Transgression. I put on Transgression. Well, people were like, did you hear Transgression? Oh my God, it's terrible. I'm like, what? I like, no. When I put it on, I'm like, what is this? It didn't sound like Fear Factory. It just sounded very light. They should have followed up with an Archetype type of record.
I need to know how Skynet gets built. Who's responsible?
When Archetype came out, when I first heard it and put it on, and the song Slave Labor came on, and I just turned my head like, what the fuck? Is that me?
It's like looking in a mirror, only not.
Slave Labor sounded so much like Shock that I thought I put on Obsolete record. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa, what? I thought it was me at first. And then after that, I thought maybe they copied my riff. You know, what the hell's going on here? Can I sue for plagiarism? You know what I mean? I couldn't because I was still part of the corporation as part of the trademark. I was still getting paid 25%. So I really couldn't sue. I mean, I could, but it would be pointless.
A little like suing yourself in some way?
Kind of, yeah. So I was like, just let it go. And, I did.
When you were just talking about slave labor reminding you of Shock or, kind of in general sounding like maybe something you could or would have written, were there any riffs you heard on Archetype that were floating around before the band first broke up in 2002?
No.
I know it's a small part, but I think we can do better than this.
There's another song called Act of God. I was like, what the hell? That's Leechmaster riff. a song called Leech Messer from our first record, Soul in Your Machine. And I was like, holy shit, they're really borrowing a lot of stuff here. And this was a song before Christian was even in the band. You know what I mean? Now, another thing that we haven't brought up yet is the lyrics. A lot of the lyrics, if you noticed, it kind of steered away from what Fear Factory wrote in the past. I would say personal.
Yeah.
If you talk about cyber waste, when I was out of the band, a lot of people were like, fuck you, you're not going to be successful without Dino. There was a few fans that said that to them online. So that was what that was. It was personal. They were saying fuck you to all those people who talk shit about them. Slave labor was also personal. Slave labor is a clause in the contract that's saying you can't keep a band for X amount of years because it's the slave labor clause. That was the clause that the band used against Roadrunner to get off Roadrunner here in America. It was a legal tactic that their attorneys were able to say, hey, you can't keep these guys as slaves. And this is slave labor. So that was that one.
Well, then, of course, we have to talk about the actual title track. On the album's Wikipedia page, it states, this song, or at least segments of lyrics from this song, are directed at you.
Yeah. The solar machine is disimproved. The infection has been removed. Something like that.
Yeah, it's along those lines.
The infection has been removed. The soul of this machine has improved. The infection has been removed. The soul of this machine has improved.
Okay, obviously, they were talking about me. When I asked Bert about that lyrics, he said, no, he played it off something else. But everybody in the world knows what he was talking about. So when we started playing the song Archetype, a lot of people were in the comments saying, you know, it's funny that Dino's playing a song that Burton wrote lyrics about. And he's still doing that to this day, by the way, just so you know, with his other projects. He's still talking about being free. So yeah, people found it ironic that I was playing these songs in the beginning.
And I noticed when you play that song in Sydney, after the bridge where everything pulls back and it's just you and the clean guitar.
Yeah.
Milo actually uses that opportunity to shout you out, send you praise, and quote unquote introduce you to the crowd. You know, Dino Cazares on guitar, and everyone cheers.
On guitar, Mr. Dino Cazares!
Getting to know him even just a little, I thought that was an interesting moment to be that moment of choice in the set list of all the songs. Archetype. Was that a deliberate choice to kind of reclaim that song or the album?
Well, you'd have to ask Milo why he says that, because I don't know. Through the whole course of the show, he introduces everybody at different times. Tony on the bass breakdown of Edge Crusher, he introduces Tony. During the slight little drum part in Demanufacture, he introduces Pete, and he just happens to do it on that quiet part. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Based on the history of the band and this album's place within it all, and the urban legend of this song being negatively written about you, I just feel it's quite strategic on his part.
You gotta ask Milo.
It's almost like it now gives it all a new positive association.
always looked at it as a positive thing, playing those songs, because you're making someone happy because they want to hear those songs. So you're making the fans happy. That's how I always looked at it. I don't care if the lyrics were about me. Hey, if somebody wants to write lyrics about me, bad or good, I always looked at it as positively. Like, these people or this person can't get me out of their mind. That they literally had to write a song about. Like I said, bad or good. Archetype is actually my favorite song on that record.
That's cool.
Yeah, you could say I kind of reclaim it. Obviously, when I was out of Fear Factory, decided to throw a little slag at me, a little ding, you know what I mean? Which is fine. But it's kind of like more like words that hurt me.
So one of the things that really interested me when it came to conceptualizing this interview was to ask you certain questions, call and respond specific thoughts or feelings that I'm sure a lot of Fear Factory fans have on their mind. And one of these being the presumption that songs from Archetype and Transgression, for that matter, weren't played live or acknowledged because of ego, because of you. You this and you that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if you go to the comments that I made early on in 2010, yeah, you could say that. You could say Dino doesn't want to play the song. Fucking Dino, blah, 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 blah. When Mechanized first came out, 2010, people did ask me, why are you not playing anything from Archetype or Transgression? My answer was, well, I don't want to do any cover songs. That was my answer. And that was my attitude in the beginning, right? But when I did want to play the songs live, after seeing so much backlash or just people wanting to hear those songs, I was like, hey, I was like, let's put these songs in the set list. You got to realize that a lot of people are going off what I said a long time ago. So they look at it like, oh, so Dino wasn't on the record, so he doesn't want to play those songs live. Oh, Dino wasn't on the record, so he doesn't want to put it out on Spotify. You know what I mean? So they're going back from those old quotes. But I realized that a lot of those people, I wonder, because have they not seen us live? Have they not seen any of the live YouTube videos where I'm playing the song live? Have they not seen that? I mean, are they just there to talk shit? I mean, what is it?
Not a great plan.
It's so easy just to look up Archetype live and go see that I've played it live 1 million times.
At least.
Now people have asked me, why don't you play stuff from Transgression? I'm like, no. I'm just, no. You might like it, but I'm not a fan. Transgression, no.
To quote from the album's Wikipedia page, Christian commented,
"We had some really heavy shit on Transgression that never made it to the album, because Burton didn't want to sing on fast blast beat songs. We had over 20 songs. He picked the ones he wanted to write to.
It seems like Transgression was such a wasted opportunity, the band even working with producer Toby Wright from Follow the Leader and Seven Dust's Home.
But there is one song that I really do like that wasn't on that record, but it was recorded during that session. That's a song called My Grave. It wasn't on the record, but it was recorded during that session. Which I don't know why they didn't put that song on the record. It's a great song.
So on that note, I'll link My Grave in the episode description.
Go listen to it, it's great.
Be sure to always check out the episode description after listening for relevant links to all things Life is Peachy, and links to topics discussed and related to the specific interview, such as Transgression's B-side, My Grave.
There was a point when I owned the trademark, full trademark, when I first got it, me and my manager were like, okay, we need to go get Archetype and Transgression because we don't own those records. Those records were done with a different record company, and it was a smaller label, and they own the records. They own the masters, recordings of those records. Because in certain countries, that record is not on Spotify, especially America. You can still hear it on Spotify in Australia, but that's it. Everywhere else, it's not there on Spotify. We don't own the legal rights to it. The guy who owns it, we contacted him, we spoke to him, and he wanted an enormous amount of money for both those records. He wanted $1 million, and I couldn't afford that. And I was like, it's not worth me buying those records to put them out for $1 million. Now, if I bought the records and I released them, I would be making money from those records because I would be the record label. So I would get the record label percentages from those records. Now, Raymond, Christian, and Burton would also be making money from those records because they wrote the songs and they would get money for publishing from those records. But right now, those records are not being played anywhere. Just Australia, they're not really making any money from those records. They're getting peanuts. They're getting pennies, if anything at all, from those two records. So I tried. Now, a lot of people think, oh yeah, Dino fucking wasn't on those records, so he doesn't want to release those records on Spotify. But people don't realize that I don't own the master recordings. So I can't do anything with that. I do not own the rights to those albums to release them. I've answered that question a million times. But I also want to clarify that just on your podcast so that people know that. I try to purchase the rights to those records, but the guy wants too much money. I don't think anybody understands how the music business works or how royalties works and stuff like that. Me playing these songs live, just so you know, and just so everybody knows, that me playing Fear Factory songs live, whether I was on the album or the songs that we're playing live, whether I was on it or not, whether I wrote those songs or not, whoever wrote those songs still gets paid for me playing these songs live. Me playing these songs live, everybody makes money who originally wrote those songs. So Raymond, Christian, and Burton still make money from those songs. I know Archetype was a big record for fans, and a lot of fans liked it. But when I was in the band, Digimortal was 2001. That was when the band had reached its peak. You know, we reached our peak. We were playing big venues in America. We were playing 4,000 seat venues.
And having that mainstream crossover.
Exactly. It was the level that you got before you went to the arenas or the 10,000 seaters or the 15,000 seaters. So we were on our way there in 2001. But by the end of that touring cycle, I was out of the band. They put a record 2004 and they kind of went back down. They went to like the 1,000 to 1,500 cap rooms. They also opened up for Korn and Static X in Australia.
Yes, I went to that. It was awesome and also featured Australia's Songlodo.
But it was Fear Factory opening up for Static X. Nothing against Static X. Love the guys.
Well, especially Tony, I guess.
Fear Factory was much bigger, or at least I thought they had gone down. They were opening up for Static X and Korn, which I was really surprised about.
lot of people obviously followed what you did outside of Fear Factory, but when starting Divine Heresy, did you ever feel that your association with that brand and the signature sound worked as a somewhat double-edged sword? Obviously, it was a great thing and brought you opportunity, but did it ever hold you back or create pressure of expectation as a songwriter with any of your other experiences?
Never. Because, metal is in my heart, and that industrial element, all that stuff was still in me. And I love writing that kind of music. It's never hurt me in any way. I've never been restricted from something I didn't want to do or write. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I know that Burton had said stuff like that in the media, and he always felt like he was restrained from doing other types of music that he wants to do. But for me, Fear Factory's in my heart, it's in my blood. It was my dream. It was my baby. No, I never felt that way at all. I never felt that it restricted me or damaged me in any way. We're still writing that kind of music. Every project that I go to, it's my style. It's something that I created. It's a part of me. It's me. It's been something that I've dreamt of and wanted to do. I still have that dream, and I still have that passion to drive for the style and for whatever I create. I still have that fire in me, that anger. And I'm not talking about just anger of Fear Factory. I meant like the anger of just where technology is going and that whole concept behind it. That's still there in me. I still love it. And I'm still that kid who just first discovers something, and wow, and just really getting into it. Fear Factory's motto is we've always sung about futuristic concepts of where society's going. And that's still in me. And I still love what I do. And that's why I fought for this. I sacrificed a lot for this. It's just what comes natural to me. It's what I know. It's what I want. It's what I feel. It's what I love. That's why I'm here today, still doing Fear Factory with a whole new lineup. And like I said, going back to Archetype, I was always like, I need to answer to that record. I need to destroy that record. I need to come up with something that's going to be amazing, if not better than that record. And to me, the answer was Divine Heresy. I think Divine Heresy, one of the reasons why I became so successful is because what I've done in the past, what I've done in Fear Factory. People are like, okay, what's Dino going to do now? Where is Dino? Dino disappeared. What's he doing? What's going on? And people were asking us questions. I read all the message boards and all that stuff, and hey, I'm here. Something's going to come out. Don't worry. And boom, Divine Heresy. And Divine Heresy was definitely more current of what was going on in 2007.
Yeah.
Right? I brought in guitar solos, stuff I didn't do in Fear Factory. I decided, okay, let's showcase some of my other talents. So, if you look at the riffs from Divine Heresy and you look at the riffs of Archetype, I didn't repeat myself like Archetype did. Fear Factory on Archetype, they repeated themselves, or okay, I'll put it this way. They copied stuff I'd done in the past for Fear Factory records. If you look at Slave Labor, Drones, just the ideas and the riffs.
Act of God.
Yeah, Act of God. There was stuff that they copied. They just maybe introduced it slightly different.
Yeah, But I mean, obviously, with that album and carrying the torch, they had to showcase, they had to prove to the doubters they could do it without you. When many would consider you the Fear Factory sound, or at the very least, one of the vital components in that sound.
Encoded, stab the styles, ill-affected progeny, tasteless iconography, this year's model gives a face, last year's model is erased. Prototype, by design, prototype,
Well, that's fine. They'll do it without me, but I also had to prove that I could do it without them. Now, I didn't repeat anything Fear Factory. I didn't repeat any riffs on Divine Heresy's Bleed the Fifth compared to what they repeated. I needed to one-up them when it came to Archetype. So I was like, man, I really need to get Divine Heresy off the ground. Boom. I got the band together. I shopped it to record companies. We got signed to Century Media Record. And in 2007, Bleed the Fifth came out. And people were like, fuck.
Wanting people to listen, you can't just tap them on the shoulder anymore. You have to hit them with a sledgehammer. And then you'll notice you've got their strict attention.
We sold a lot of records. We did a lot of touring, and people like Divine Heresy, like, what the fuck? People liked it. People got into it. And I was happy. But it didn't have the industrial element that Fear Factory did, right?
Yeah.
Divine Heresy, which I noticed, started to get a whole new crop of fans that didn't even know Fear Factory or know I was in Fear Factory.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They didn't even know that. So we were getting a whole new crop of young fans. We were just like a new band to them. You know what I mean? They never heard of the guys in the band. But don't get me wrong, there was a lot of Fear Factory fans who did hear it, and they were coming to the shows and stuff like that. There was a whole crop of new fans, which was really good. Just getting a whole new, different type of people into your music. You gotta remember, because between 2007 and 2010, there was a whole new crop of bands coming out. A whole new style of music was coming out. Divine Heresy, we toured with everybody. Static X, Arch Enemy, Chimera, All That Remains, Shadows Fall. I can't even name all the bands we toured with. There's so many.
A lot of quote-unquote metalcore bands.
Correct. That's what was really big. So we were touring with all those bands. That was where we fit in. By the time I came out with Divine Heresy, they were already done. They had some internal issues, and they went on hiatus. 2006 might have been their last touring year, but they had some internal issues, and I don't want to get into that because it's none of my business. They all went off and did their own projects. I think Bert did Ascension of the Watchers and City of Fire. I think Ascension was more gothy, and City of Fire was more rock. You know, something completely different from Fear Factory. And then Raymond and Christian did a project called Archaea, Archaea record. That came out around the same time as Divine Heresy did too. But Archaea, well, from what I read in interviews, that music was supposed to be the next Fear Factory record for them.
Right.
But some personal issues happened, and I don't know why Burton wasn't on that record. Whoever they had on that record, I guess it didn't work. I know the fans didn't really like the vocals or something. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't very successful. And I know they were opening up for Kitty, and they dropped off after like 3 weeks. They dropped off after the tour. They just left the tour. Why, I don't know, but they did. And I was like, oh, what? I guess is that band over? I don't know what it is. I don't know why they didn't. I don't know what happened with their projects. Maybe they didn't stick to it. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't do well. I don't know why. Divine Heresy was probably closer to Fear Factory than Archaea or any other project that Burton was working on or those guys were working on. I was following all their careers and what they were doing. I was following it. Of course, it's easy to follow. You just go to the Fear Factory message boards, or you go to the news sites and you can see what's going on, right? MySpace was big back then, if you remember that.
Yeah.
You can easily follow what's going on, and you also hear from other people in the industry of what's going on with those guys, with those bands. And I had people look up, hey, how many records they sell? How many records did that band sell? How many records did that band sell? How many records did this project sell? And blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell you right now, just another observation, that Assassino, our second record, we sold more albums than any of their projects combined outside of Fear Factory. And Assassino's my most underground band. A lot of people don't know it. It's all extreme death metal in Spanish. We kept it underground. We didn't really want to go too far with it because it was just a fun project. But that record, that second album that came out in 2007, sold more copies than City of Fire, Ascension of Watches, and Archaea combined. And I was like, wow, that's it? And also, Assassino, we released it independently. We had no record company. We released it ourselves. I used Century Media Distribution to distribute the record across the world. So I was doing it myself. So you got to remember, from 2002 to 2009, I put out Roadrunner All-Stars record, 2 Assassino records, 2 Divine Heresy records. Those like 5 records I put out within that time.
Well, someone was a busy boy.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I needed to start doing other stuff. And I might have never experienced those being in Fear Factory. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to stay. Don't get me wrong. But I had to make the best of it. It freed my time to do other things. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't want to go back into the drama, but I did. 2009, Burton had a plan. He's like, I want to get the band back together. I'm going to talk to the other guys. Are you in or are you out? And I was like, well, I thought about it for a while. I thought about it for 6 months. And I was like, do I want to go down that road again? Do I want to go back into that? I mean, I'm doing great on my own. I felt like I accomplished something. Releasing Bleed the Fifth, releasing all those projects and all those records, doing pretty well with Assassino, you know, in the underground scene, and just surpassing. It was kind of like, I felt like, fuck you, you guys kicked me out, boom, this is what I'm putting out. Beat that.
I watch you tap for blood in my vein. My heart you feed on to keep you sustained. A parasite that leaves me cold and drained.
Skynet fights back.
Yes.
Now I know no one trusts you. Now I know no one trusts you. Now I know this haunted my world.
I never got an explanation of why I got kicked out, why they started the band without me. I never got an explanation of why they went behind my back and did all that stuff. I've asked Burton, and he never really had a straight answer. He blamed it on the other guys, you know what I mean? And I've read in the interviews that the other guys blame it on Burt. Somebody's not telling the truth here, so I was like, you know, fuck you guys, beat that.
Not having that definitive answer all those years must have created a complicated connection and association for you towards Fear Factory and the music?
Correct. You know, sometimes you find the things that'll light the fire under your ass to say, I can do better. I can be better. I can kick ass and write some fucking sick ass shit.
Hell yeah.
You know, in a competitive way, you want to beat them. And that's what drove me. Just, you know, accumulating all these projects and all these songs, my catalog of music. I was just like, boom, I'm just not going to stop. So when Burton asked me in 2009 that he was going to come back and wants to bring the band back together, I was hesitant. I was like, fuck that. I wanted to continue being successful on my own. And then something was like, let's see what happens. You know what I mean? Let's see what happens.
Help yourself.
Yeah. Remember, this is months of thinking about this. I was putting Bert off with an answer. I didn't answer right away. I didn't say, yeah, fuck, we're going to get the band back together. Fuck yeah. No, I wasn't like that at all. I was like, a lot of drama has happened in between those years from 2002 to 2009. A lot of drama has happened with Fear Factory. They went on hiatus. The band flopped on their last record on Transgression. It was a flop.
Yeah, I guess you could say 2005's Transgression feels like a rushed experimental misfire. The potential's there, but I remember even Burden, in retrospect, acknowledging it was a failed experiment, and to once again go back to the album's Wikipedia page and quote Christian.
Transgression. I'm not proud of that at all, it's crap. I produced Archetype, Burton produced Transgression with Toby Wright. That is the truth.
I know there's fans out there that like Transgression, and whatever, I'm just giving you my opinion of how I felt about the record. It was really bad. Like I said, some people like it, and that's fine. You're a fan, you like it, that's cool. But in the industry, it was a flop. It sold nothing. It was a piece of shit that hit the floor. They did very minimal touring on it, and it was like, do I want to come back to that? Do I want to come back to a band that just took a shit and then they broke up? You know, all those thoughts went through my head. Do I want to come back to that? Is it going to be worth anything if all four band members got back together? And if we started writing, there's going to be too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's not going to work in my head. Those are the things that I was questioning myself. Am I going to be able to let go what happened? You know what I mean? Am I going to be able to let go to what happened to me? How they treated me and what they did to me? Am I going to be able to let go of that and be able to get in a room and write with these guys? Because technically, from Soul in a Machine to Obsolete, it was all me and Raymond writing this music, and then Burton just sang on top, right? It wasn't until Digimortal where we let Christian into the writing room, and that's when certain things went a different direction. And I was like, wow, do I want to deal with that again? Do I want to do all that again? I was like, fuck it, let's find out.
Won't let the time pass waiting for the answer.
So Burton flew to LA because he was living somewhere else. He flew to LA to have a meeting with Raymond and Christian, and the meeting wasn't exactly successful. They basically told Bert to fuck off, and they told Bert, we don't want anything to change. We want just the three of us, meaning Raymond, Christian, and Bert. The Archetype lineup, which I'm sure a lot of people would love that. But the problem is, a lot of people are loving Archetype, and they're forgetting that they put out Transgression. You know what I mean? It wasn't, it's like, we want the Archetype lineup back together and write another record, those guys. Why? So we could go another Transgression route? They did. They did Transgression. It was horrible. Anyways, I know some people are going to get mad that I said that, but whatever. These are my opinions and my feelings. They weren't there when all this stuff was going down. The inside stuff that happened. So Burton said, hey, do you want to just do it with me? You want us to bring back Fear Factory and we can get a couple other guys. Do I want to do that? The two other guys said no. Do I want to do that? I put it off again for another few months. And I was like, okay, let's do it. We went in to do Mechanized. And I was like, I needed to beat Divine Heresy. Because I did 2 Divine Heresy records that were ripping, that were badass. And I needed to write a record with Fear Factory that's going to be up to that standard. And also try to beat Archetype as well. So when we did Mechanized, we came out swinging hard. We're going to fucking do a heavy fucking record. And that's what we did. A lot of people compared it to Divine Heresy, and that's fine. They can compare it to Divine Heresy. That's great, because those records were great, and I had no issue with that at all. People thought that they were like, oh, it sounds like Divine Heresy. And I was like, hell yeah. Because Divine Heresy fucking ripped. And I don't think that the riff sounded like Divine Heresy. It was the energy, and it was the intensity, and it was the speeds. Because Fear Factory tempos were under 200 beats per minute. So everything that we did was under those tempos. So when I did Mechanized, I decided to speed it up a little bit and go to tempos that were 200 BPMs or higher. Especially with a song like Power Shifter, that's like 220 BPMs. That's insane. It's fast. So I just wanted to come out with a fucking heavy record that was going to be like fucking brutal. And it was great.
Over the years away and before stepping back into the band with Burden in 2009, what would you say were some of the things you actually missed about being in and part of Fear Factory?
Nothing.
True.
Your foster parents are dead.
Because I was able to do it with my other band, Divine Heresy. Whatever I was missing, well, first of all, when something like that's taken away from you, something that you started, your baby, something that you created, it's just taken away from you like that. Your attitude was like, fuck you. That's your attitude. Fuck you guys. I'm going to fucking be better. I'm going to do better. It took me a few years to get there because I was working on other projects. So whatever I did miss, I was just able to put it into Divine Heresy. If you know what I mean. I wasn't thinking about what I was missing. I was thinking about what I'm going to create next. I was thinking about, fuck you. That's what I was thinking.
Well, that was the fire under your ass.
That was my fire. Yeah, fuck yeah. But hold on. That's musically. But the one thing I did miss were the fans. That's what I missed. And playing those Fear Factory songs for the fans. So that was something that I did miss. Yes.
Yeah, man, because there's something very special when you're in a Fear Factory crowd. Euphoric energy, there's a community, and it's so special. I want to even say the feeling you get from some of the riffs, some of the songs, it gives this sense of hope.
I come back with Fear Factory. We released 4 records, right? Me and Burton got sued by Christian and Raymond for monies owed. We owed them money. I ended up beating my lawsuit against those guys, but Burton ended up losing his lawsuit against those guys and has to pay them $1 million.
Wow.
So Burton decided to quit the band, and he said a lot of things in the press, like he only did Fear Factory out of necessity. He only did Fear Factory because he needed money. He didn't believe a lot of the lyrics he was writing, and blah, 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 blah. He said he felt restrained doing Fear Factory. He felt like he was pigeonholed doing Fear Factory, and that's fine. I ended up winning my lawsuit against the guys, against Raymond and Christian. One of the biggest misconceptions is that people thought that I sued Burton, but that's not true. It was Raymond and Christian who sued us individually. We had separate lawsuits. They sued us separately so they can get separate money. So if they would have won my lawsuit, I would have had to give them $1 million. I won my lawsuit against them. I didn't owe them anything. But actually, Burton filed for bankruptcy. And when he filed for bankruptcy, he tried to get out of paying those guys. And unfortunately, he lied in his bankruptcy. That's a federal offense. Raymond and Christian took him back to court, made him open up the bankruptcy. The bankruptcy was null and void. So Burton had to pay back those guys. And they took all of Bert's assets. Assets meaning whatever you own. Whether it's a house, a car, a trademark, copyright, business, so on and so on. They took all that away from them from lying in court.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
When you go through a bankruptcy, the bankruptcy court sells your assets to try to make money back, to pay back the people you owe money to. So when I found out that Burton's assets were up for sale, my lawyer contacted the court of Pennsylvania and said, hey, look, we're interested in buying this Fear Factory trademark, Burton's half. At this point, I owned half and Burton owned half. Raymond and Christian did not own the name at all whatsoever. They were only owed money. That's it. But they didn't own the trademark. Even though they tried to take the trademark from us and they tried to find every possible way to do that, because that's what lawyers do, right? They were not successful. So the bankruptcy court owned Burton's half of the trademark. They put it up for sale. It's like eBay. They auction it off. So I had to place a bid if I wanted that trademark. And that's what I did. I put a bid up. Now, Burton couldn't buy his own assets back because he already lied in court. It was a federal offense. So he couldn't buy his assets back. So he didn't even have the opportunity to do that legally. I figured, hey, I'm going to try to buy this name. And I wanted to bring Burton and say, hey, look, I got the name. Let's just continue, right? So I put a bid up for the trademark. They wanted a lot of money for it. And Raymond and Christian put a bid up for it as well. But eventually I ended up winning the bid. I ended up winning the auction. And I own Burton's half of the name, which meant I own full 100% of the trademark of Fear Factory. So I reached out to Burton and I said, hey, just come back 50-50, which I found out technically, even though I bought Burton's 50% of the trademark, I couldn't give it to him. I couldn't legally buy it and then give it to him, because if I did, then that means I was colluding and, buying the name and just giving it to him. It goes against what the court's orders were. So I couldn't even do that. But I could pay Burton 50% of whatever we earned as Fear Factory. Now, there was a problem with that. The problem was Raymond and Christian froze his assets. Okay, if Burton would have come back to Fear Factory, whatever he earns from Fear Factory, a percentage of that would have to go to Raymond and Christian to pay back the millions of dollars.
Right.
So Burton didn't want to go out there on tour and working his ass off and having to pay those guys a percentage of what he earns on the tour. Basically, whatever money is earned from Burton Bell's name in Fear Factory, that goes to Raymond and Christian. So in other words, if the song Replica earns money on Spotify, that money goes to Raymond and Christian's lawyers. It's kind of like child support, okay? If you're a guy having to pay child support, but you happen to be that guy that doesn't pay his child support, the court can go after your money that you're earning from your job. They could take a percentage of that money and pay your kids. That's basically what was happening to Burton. Now, Burton could get a regular job. Let's say he went and got a job at Macca's.
That's very
Say he got a job at McDonald's. He wouldn't have to give him a portion of that money because that's not being earned by Fear Factory. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I could be wrong. There might be some technicalities where I'm a little wrong, but it's basically what happened. So, in reality, me playing the Fear Factory songs live goes to pay back Burton's debt to those guys. But Burton doesn't see that.
Man, there are definitely no rainbows and butterflies when it comes to the business end of music and being in a band.
Exactly. There's a whole other side to it that fans just don't know. And I get it. They're not in this industry. They're just a fan listening to the songs, and they don't understand how all this works.
Yeah. We're all just like, but I want those 4 guys to get along and play the music that represented my youth. If I love it this much, then surely they do too.
Listen, sure, it's easy for all 4 of us to get together, but it wouldn't be easy to do business with them. It wouldn't be easy to write songs with them, and it wouldn't be easy because somebody would have to be in control of that ship, and that would be me, not anybody else. And that's not going to work. Look what happened to Jane's Addiction. They got back together. Burton pretty much said, fuck you, Dino, I'm not coming back. Fuck that. I'm over it. So I'm like, okay, I'll do what I normally do. Put a band together and fucking do it. It's not like I haven't been there before. Like I said earlier, I still have the fire, the drive, the passion to do this. And I think that's owed to the Fear Factory fans. The Fear Factory fans want to hear the Fear Factory songs like they are on the record. They want to hear the songs. They grew up with those songs. They still listen to those songs. And then when we go out there and play, we're going to give it the best that we can do. And it's pretty fucking good.
And on that sentiment, if you're interested in what my introduction to Fear Factory was back in the 90s and new singer Milo's journey from fan to frontman, make sure you check out episode 32 of the Life Is Peachy podcast after we're wrapped up here. Milo's story is a great tale, accompanied to the soundtrack of Fear Factory's cinematic concept album.
First of all, keep the legacy going. That's my first goal. I'm here to keep the legacy going and pay homage to the vocal sound, you know, in the band catalog. But as far as new music goes, and not just new music, but I would say in general, I want to bring some new sparkle of energy, you know, especially on stage. I remember in an interview, Burton said, I think it's good to add elements to enhance the sound, but not to change. And I agree on that, because once you define your band sound, you don't really want to alienate your audience. That's the sound they're going for. You know, that's what they're going to get from that brand. Even for new music, I think what I can bring, being myself a composer, both like soundtracks, classic music, but also in metal. And fortunately, I'm so thankful for the fact that Dino told me that I could bring my own ideas, you know, for future new music, which was a real thankful, because, you know, of course, you wouldn't expect the riff master to give you such space. So I'm really thankful for that. I think we'll try new things, but still stay in the Fear Factory area, you know, without straying away from it too much.
People are like, Milo sounds like Burton. I'm like, yeah. You want him to sound like Linkin Park's new singer? Do you want him to sound that different? You know what I mean? No. I mean, I want people to hear those songs how they were written, how they were presented to you.
Now, in terms of a current Fear Factory set list, how did you go about selecting the songs from Archetype?
Well, when I was with Burton, when we were touring, we played Cyberway, Slave Labor, or Archetype. We were playing those songs, and Burton for a long time said, no, I don't want to play nothing from those records. I'm like, why? I don't get it. But I figured it out. Because when you play those songs live, remember, this is before the lawsuit. When you play those songs live, those guys earn money too. Because you're playing their songs. People really don't understand how that works. It's called performance royalties. And a part of those performance royalties go to Raymond and Christian, the guys who wrote the song. And I didn't care. It's their songs. Sure. Why not? But Burton cared, and he didn't want to do it. So we ended up doing, I think, just Archetype only. Not all the time, but sometimes. So when I restarted Fear Factory with Milo, I was like, Milo can sing these songs. Fuck it, let's play them. Fans want them. Fans want to hear them. Let's give it to them. When I came back to Fear Factory doing Mechanized, when I was touring, everybody was asking me, because fans wanted that. I read the message boards, I read the comments and everything, and people wanted them. And so I was like, you know what, Burton, we should do these songs. What's the harm? And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. He just didn't want to do it. And I was like, okay. But coming back with Milo, he was able to sing all those songs, anything we threw at him, he could sing. He was very much a huge Fear Factory fan. Whatever we choose to throw in there, it's like he can do it, which really helped a lot. And I didn't have to teach him nothing. I didn't really have to show him much when it came to the music or any of the vocals. I didn't have to show him really anything. There was a few things that I said not to do because he was kind of doing it. When you hear Bert singing live and you hear what's on the record, two different things. And there was a couple of things Burton would do that he tried to mask his issues with his throat, and he would do certain techniques to try to not crack when he sings live. And then Milo was starting to adapt those techniques. I'm like, no, don't do that. He's like, what? This is how Bert sang it in fucking 1999 in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm like, God damn, he knows everything. I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do it. Don't. And he stopped it, thank God.
Yeah, like you said, sing it as is, present it as is, on the CD.
Right? As it is on the CD, yes, exactly. Don't try to do what he did live. Don't.
With this current lineup, Fear Factory have played the title track and Slave Labor, but do you think you'll introduce more songs from Archetype into future set lists?
That I don't know. I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, there's obviously so many songs in the back catalogue.
yeah, but I'm playing the hits off that record. The song that people know the most.
Hearing Milo's journey in fronting Fear Factory really shed light on the fact that not only is he a fan, but his heart is in the right place, and both the legacy and the future of the band means everything to him. He's well aware of the torch he is carrying moving forward.
We are definitely preserved the legacy of what Fear Factory is. And I got the perfect guy for it, the perfect singer for it, because he feels the same way. He is preserving and honoring what was done before him. And he does it well. What can I say? He does it well.
Afterwards, head over to patreon.com/Life Is Peachy Podcast for bonus episode 34 interview content with Dino, exclusive under the Michael Bolton tier.
The unknown future rolls toward us. I face it for the first time with a sense of hope. Because if a machine, a Terminator, can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too.
Yeah, I have to say the band feels like it's in a pretty healthy place, and you look happy on stage these days.
I'm very much in a happy place. And I was in a happy place in between 2003 and 2009, doing my projects, being successful in that way. going to other countries that I had never gone to before, and touring with Brujeria, touring with Asesino, and going to all over South America and seeing those beautiful countries that I've never gone to before, not even with Fear Factory. It was fun. It was great. I got to experience different stuff, and I was happy.
Dino, thank you for taking the time to let a fellow Fear Factory fan rack your brains based on their own self-indulgent interests in wanting to hear a different perspective on an album and era you were shunned from. But my intentions with this was not to throw shade on other members or anything like that. It's all part of the context and overall scope of the band's legacy. And furthermore, in this specific case, in this interview, your journey to where you are now, back with this new chapter of Fear Factory.
Now, do you realize that when you put this out and you start sending stuff to all the metal sites, this is going to spark up some drama. It's also going to spark up some like, oh, isn't Dino over it by now? It's not that it's something I need to get over. It's just what happened. That's all it is. This is just a story, my story of what happened. That's all it is. And I have no ill will towards any of those other guys. None. As a matter of fact, I've spoken to Christian quite a few times already.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's cool. I'm hoping to snag him in 2025 for Demanufacturer's 30th anniversary.
Ah, okay. It's all good. I have no ill will towards those guys, but there are reasons why people are not in my life anymore. That is my choosing. I don't like to go back to people that have hurt me multiple times, and that's just how it is. But I have no ill will towards those guys at all whatsoever. And I wish them success on whatever they do.
Well, I think that's the note to draw the curtains. People are going to speak their piece no matter what, but the whole point of this was to celebrate a fan favorite album and further detail the complete scope of the band and Fear Factory's work.
All right, mate.
Legend. Thanks, Dino.
All right, have a good one, man.
See you soon, man.
Can't wait. Later.
I love this job.
And there we have it, episode 34 of the Life Is Peachy Podcast, my chat with Fear Factory Axeman Dino Cazares. I strive to be all about bringing you, the Lips, the most unique explorations and celebrations of the music and artists we all love so much. Honestly, I would love to do this full time, but these episodes take quite a bit to write, record, edit, and promote, amongst my work with Life Is Peachy Productions and, well, just life in general. But more patronage and support directly contributes towards more interviews and episodes for you. It's as simple as that. You can even think of it this way. For the price of 1 or 2 coffees a month, you can quite literally help me continue making more Life Is Peachy content. And of course, you'll be rewarded for it over at patreon.com/Life Is Peachy Podcast. In fact, waiting for you right now is additional unreleased episode 34 content exclusive to Patreon under the Michael Bolton tier.
We can work it out.
Huge thank you to the Lip Virtual Tip Jar patrons and to Darren, Spinning the CD Discman, and Fly of Change, Majika, Raimi, and Vaginator rocking that Michael Bolton tier. And if you haven't already, follow the link in this episode's description and subscribe to my second podcast channel, The Lip Mixtape Sessions, a more stripped-back Q&A driven podcast, already featuring interviews with Sepultura's Andreas Kisser, ex-Machine Head drummer Dave McLean, and members of Crazy Town, Vision of Disorder, Head PE, Fly of Change, and Spine Shank. I would love to once again thank you for your time and energy and sharing it with me here today. Let's continue connecting over music and nostalgic moments. Until we hang out next month, as always,
See you at the party, Richter.
Bye-bye.
You know, I can eat a peach for hours.
This episode was written, edited, and produced by myself, recorded from the comfort of my own home.
DIY style.
With each guest calling in from wherever they happen to be around the world at that particular time. The Life Is Peachy theme song is an original tune for this podcast written by Tim Richardson.
The Life Is Peachy Podcast is not monetized. All music rights and credits go to its rightful owners.
Further details can be found in this episode's description. All artwork is original and illustrated for the Life Is Peachy podcast by Chris Lisa Liefting.